Good morning, everyone. Mohammed Sibat Crest and Mohammed Sibat KG Academy of Architecture welcomes you all to this lecture series. We thank our Dean and Advisor, Professor Mohammed Harris, our Principal, Professor Mohammed Idris, our HOD, Professor Satish Kumar, for providing this platform. I request everyone to switch on the video throughout the session and kindly mute the mic. The presentation by our guest will be for 15 minutes. After that, we'll have a question answer session. You can type your questions in the comment box. We'll have an interactive session where you can ask the questions directly to the speaker. Today we have architect Sreehari with us. He has studied Bachelor of Architecture from Satyavama University. He worked with Living Housing Studio, Tiruvannamalai, and worked on conservation projects in Offshore Consulting Private Limited, Indore, Madhya Pradesh. He is the founder of Making Mud Matter in Tiruvannamalai. His works mainly focus on natural material constructions such as compressed stabilized earth bricks, lime plasters, mud plasters, oxide finishes, and reusing the materials in the construction. He believes in alternative, sustainable building practice and office-free environments. I welcome you once again on behalf of my colleagues and our students. We are really excited to listen to you. Unbound Practice, Architect Sreehari, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the introduction, ma'am. It is a great pleasure to be a part of this session today. And thank you everyone for joining this meeting. I really appreciate the effort you've taken, and you're spending your time, valuable time now, to listen to probably something interesting, I would say. So yeah, so basically, as ma'am said, I'm Sreehari. Yes, I'm working as an architect now. My topic, which I have given to ma'am, is like it's all about unbound practice. So before I jump into what unbound practice or what a practice looks like if it is without an office sort of environment, I would like to tell you what we do here. So I work in a town called Tiruvannamalai. So I practice here. So there are certain clients who are more of interested towards this natural constructions, or I won't say it is like completely sustainable, but sort of natural building materials. They really want to explore a field of architecture into that. So we does similar works. So we work with mud. Basically, we do CSEB wall constructions, mud plasters, lime plasters, some exposed works, or some oxide flooring or natural finishes, and something like that. So that is a field of work I sort of practice into. So that will give you an idea of like what exactly I'm work, or what I'm capable of, answering your doubts or something like that. So my topic is about an unbound practice. So unbound practice, even though it sounds very architectural, it is basically, I'm just going to explain what's my journey through a practice which is like an office-free environment. So basically, to make it into even more simpler statement, I practice and I work at site. So that is the simplest form of unbound practice which I perceive, or I mean. So what is actually this office-free environment? So what exactly is that? So office-free, and so if you take the projects, like if you take the types of practices we do, so probably there will be like 3-4 types of practices. Some will be like supernatural sort of buildings, like very modern. Then a lot of people fall into this normal contemporary or like modern style practices, which is very conventional. And then a set of people fall into this called these natural materials, or like eco-friendly constructions. So eco-friendly construction is what we practice, and which required it is a very labor-intensive process, which requires more supervision and something like that. And so we basically practice at site. So definitely we used to design softwares, we used to work on systems or something like that. But the major of the practice happens at site. So why should we do that? That is a thing which will come to our mind. So starting from my point of view, my perspective of seeing this, in any field you take, like whether it be architecture, sports, or engineering, doctors, everything. So whatever you achieve, or whatever you gain through your theory knowledge, if you need to increase that knowledge or implement that, definitely this hands-on experience or like field work is definitely necessary. And so for architecture, you can even say that it is even more. You need more exposure towards this field work. That is a point where it is a must-have thing for every architecture students or architects to practice with hand. They have to be at site. They have to practice at site. So yeah, that is how the practice works. So how is it different from a regular office environment? So it is not just like we just design in system. We just do all these works. We just design. We just do elevations on sections, everything like that. But we also try to implement those inside. That is a biggest point comes in between. So I can say that like we actually learn from site. We actually practice at site. So this is what I could conclude by saying that it is what an unbound practice in general means. Um, yeah, so that would have given you an idea of like what this thing is all about. Mm, Now, just a second. I have some connection issue. Just a second. Yeah, so that is how it evolved. Uh, so how do I get into this? That is biggest question I usually get from people, because it is not like a regular practice. You go to work from 9 to 5, and then you come back and you do some drawing. It is not something like that. It is like you daily wake up. It is like you attend a workshop daily, because every day you visit a site, it is a complete different environment there. It is a complete different thing to solve. So we usually work with the laborers. It is more of like, it is not like an office sort of environment. We regularly visit site. We work with the labor. So how do I got this interest too? So I had this opportunity. Like my parents were like really ambitious enough to give me the first project when I was doing my architectural UG. So that is a time when I explored. Like it was very easy for, I mean, I don't say it is easy. It was far more easy for me to design on a paper than to construct on site. So when I was doing my fourth year, I started my residence as my first project, just to explore like what is it to be like to practice, rather than just design. So that is the time when I realized, okay, it was a completely a different set of field out there. So it is very easy for me to design something, but it is very hard for me to execute. So I have to consider a lot of things in mind. I have to consider cost. I have to consider manpower. I have to procure materials. I have to know everything. That was like something very hard for me to digest at that point of time. So that is when I realized, okay, even though our academic system gives us a lot of knowledge, like it gives us a lot of basics to understand and learn. But it was always necessary for someone to really put his hands on to something, to really know more about the process. So that is the time when I realized, okay, I'm not a person who fits in a office environment, or it is not what I need at this point of time. I need to explore more. So that is how I got into a firm called the Living House Studio, which is in Tiruvannamalai. The principal architect is Ajay. He is an architect from Auroville. He practices fantastic architecture with mud or something like that. So I was really interested into it, and I was very fortunate to have him as a mentor. So he used to guide me. He used to give me that. He used to water the plant inside me. I can say that. So he used to basically help me to evolve in what I was interested into. So that is how I developed sort of interest into this hands-on experience. And the firm which I started, which is very recently started, is known as Making Mud Matter. I didn't start as such like I wanted to, but it came as an evolution of what I was doing. So the best positive thing about being on site or doing a work at site is that you develop contact through all these laborers or all these contractors, all these vendors, everyone. So eventually you will end up doing something like for your own rather than working in a firm. Like you will end up experiencing your capabilities or experiencing what you're capable of doing with the degree you have. So that is how I evolved, and probably that is how I got into few projects, which later thought, okay, this is a time when we need to name the work I do, and that's how Making Mud Matter was formed. So yeah, it is just a general introduction. So maybe to add on that, I can just show you a slide, which is like a very the slide is with I purposefully put very silly images onto it to show you like what exactly is it to work inside. And I can probably show you the slide now so that you will get a better idea about what exactly an work inside environment means. So I'll just after that we can probably have a discussion about that too. I'll just present my screen now. Is it visible, ma'am?
Yes, just make it into full screen.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. I'll just.
Yeah.
So as I was mentioning, I was fortunate enough to do my uh, Tiruvannamalai. So you can see I had used all this CSEB exposed works, some concrete exposed works, and some sort of works with natural stones or something like that. So this is an interior, a very simple interior. So you can see all these walls. These are like made of lime plasters, and these are like lime washed. So I've tried maximum to avoid all these chemicals inside. Later I can explain you one project there. So as I was, we are moving into what I was telling. What is exactly to experience in a site. So the first thing is you will experience all these site visits. So basically, this was a site we were supposed to build some township sort of project. So rather, it is like a complete change from what you experience in a office environment. You would more likely to visit sites like this. Your client discussions will look something like this, which is not so. We can't no assume this while we are doing this architecture course. So our some of our client visits used to look like this. Um, our my architectural drawing used to look like this. So we used to draw at site. Um, the canvas becomes large. It becomes 1:1. We probably design at sites at times. You get to meet some people like this. These are like he is one of a client. His name is Carlo. He's from Switzerland. He has a firm called Fineram, which practices. He practices with lime. He is actually a painter. Painter in the terms like it is not like what we do here. He experiment with lime. So we get to meet some people because we are into a field where people are like very closely connected. It is a very close network. So we get to meet some people like this, so who shares similar ideologies, or they are much more experienced people who can share their knowledge with us. Our lab looks something like this. So this was a picture taken during one of our project of his. So we were experimenting something with the lime, and we were manufacturing some natural lime paints there. So the workshops or the site sometimes looks like this. Uh, Making some samples looks like this. Um, you will be constantly noting all those things made. You'll be experimenting with samples. Um, to make a wall like this, all these process has to be done. So the final product will be something like this. So this is how a site work is entirely different from what of an office environment. I'm not telling that office environment is really bad. You get to learn a lot of things from there. You get to manage time. You get to learn a lot of things like organizing and meeting big shots, like big clients, a lot of things like this. But I always think, like, as a young practitioner or as a young architect, you definitely need to know all these little things inside the building, so that your design eventually evolve according to that. So our discussion sometimes looks like this. So there'll be volunteers coming to our sites. There'll be like, we'll be experimenting with a lot of things like that. Um, this is just a small silly example of a patterned floor. This is very easy for us to make in SketchUp or in CAD. But for even for a smaller detail like this, you need to, or a detail like this, you need to spend a lot of time behind. So this is what most of the people miss out, and this is what you get as an advantage of working in site. So you get to know all these things, like, okay, how it is being made. This will eventually reflect your designs. This will eventually make your designs more practical. So and this, most of the people might know, this is a filler slab. It looks very aesthetic in terms of, if you finished product. But what it is goes behind to make a similar product is intensive labor process. So even marking the pots at site, or creating a sort of niche there to hold these pots at site, it's a very hectic process happening behind. uh, Next comes the foundation. So it is very easy for us to build raised walls. It is for us to design walls there. So but what goes behind it, how it is structurally strong? The most eliminated, or like most avoided topic during academics is probably would be structures, because it's seems to be very very rough and tough. But what actually helps you in a real life construction is the same structures. So you will experience a lot of things other than your general academics, or other than just working on systems. You will experience how each structure is being made, what is the process to make those things. So the previous slide you saw was an random rubble foundation, whereas this is a frame structure with columns standing. So you will get to know, like, what height the column should be, or how it should be placed. So all these props which are holding this columns on line, we will never experience those in our drawings. We can only experience those, or what we can only experience the need of those when you actually visit your site. Just for example, like some brick masonry, most difficult part, or I would say the most interesting part of a building is the brick masonry, because that covers almost most of the space there. So it is most valuable there. So it is always important to know what goes inside, or how to how to lay a brick, or how to what is the mortar composed of, or how to do that. So brick masonry itself is a very technical thing, but we usually avoid that. So being on site, you'll definitely need to experience all these things. So if there's a joint, if there's an angle, or if there is something like this on the left side, you can see a pattern we are making. It is like an inclined thing. Again, I would say it is very easy to do it in an elevation design, but it is definitely a harder part to do it in site. So we will be exposed to all these things. If you are practicing in an office friendly way, you are supposed to experience all these things, which will eventually make you a person who designs very practically. That is what I have experienced through this. This picture, you can see it is basically in my design. I had made cantilevered steps because aesthetically it looks very appealing than the normal stairs. So it was very easy for me to make a cantilever steps in drawing, but see what the process goes behind to actually construct that at site. So that is what you need to really experience. So that will give you an idea of like what exactly goes behind the site. It is like what goes inside your food. So if you know cooking, you know what is inside. So something like that. You definitely need to know how the process is being done. So, and a very silly example or a simple example, you can on the left you can see a arch or like a curve with a MS pipe. To make that for the to deal with the layman. So this is another important part of being at site. You you will learn how to deal with these people, because these are not the people with architectural degree, but with their experience of their leading this field to a greater extent. So it is always important to convey your ideas to them. So how do you do that? If I need a curve like this, I can't randomly go and tell them like, oh, you just make a curve and it fits for me. That is not the right way. So on the right side, you can see I had made a similar steel rod. With that, it's a TMT rod. With that, I've drawn it on the ground first, made it a curve with the help of our neighbors, then gave that as a mold or as a template to the builder, so he can manufacture this thing. So it is the level of detail lies in all these things, which we usually miss out if you are not so attentive in the site. And this thing is a rock or like a masonry, RR masonry. This looks okay. It looks like some stones are laid or something like that. But to bring out this process, this is how the initial steps would be. So you should be at site. You should tell them, okay. And this is like this is entirely different from what is of a brick masonry. Brick masonry is all of like a crisscross, perfect stones. Since you need some patterns like this, it is always important to be at site and talk with the labor who is doing, with the mason who is doing. Just tell them what your idea is, and they will give you inputs, and with that you develop a pattern. With that you will be constructing something at site. So it is extremely labor intensive, these processes are, but it is always fun to do that, because you are in a free environment where you can experience or experiment with whatever materials you have. As I said, it is masonry. So if you look at this picture, probably you will say, okay, this is just a picture. There's just a mason who is laying those bricks, but it is much more than that. We have to see whether the patterns are online. We have to see whether the lines are exactly in the center of the other bricks. The mortar thickness are the same. If the window measurements are the same, if the gap given for the window is the same, or how much bricks has to be there to get to the required height. So a lot of things happens behind the scenes. So you will be experiencing these things. You will be fortunate enough to experience these things if you are at site. See how a brick wall is done. So initially, these masons will not have that vision of the final product, but through your communication with them, through the interaction with them, they'll get an idea of what they want, and it is your duty to bring that in. For that, it is not like you can send a drawing and then wait for that thing to happen. So you have to be at site to get something like this. So this was a pattern. I had made it to a residence. So it looks very simple. Even if I see a photo of something like that, initially I used to think, oh, it's just a stone wall, but it is not that. It is a very labor intensive process. You have to select each and every stone there. You have to fit there. You have to keep it and make sure that it fits there. If there is a color difference between them, you have to really check into it. So these are the things which you basically learn if you're at site. And last but not the thing, these are the team. These are like literally they are like the gurus. So the one thing you should always keep in mind is like these people will not know what an architect is, or these people will not consider you as an architect. Maybe they will. We should also look into them as fellow workers or co-workers. You should exchange your ideas with them, even from a male labor to a mason to a carpenter. Everyone, you should talk to them, so that with all their experiences and their trial and error sessions, they would have come up with a great solution, which only through your communication or your interaction you will get to know. So these are the foremost primary people of any construction, the layman's or the base workers. They teach you a lot. So unless and until you avoid the concept of or you explore beyond the concept of being in an office environment, or you explore being into a site and experiencing all these things, you will learn a lot. You will basically understand what the basics of a construction is, or a basics of the basics of everything that is being built or that is being done at site. So with that, you can probably develop your sort of ideas, or you can probably design a better sort of thing. The dimensions or everything that you will get to learn a lot from them. So this is what basically unbound practice or an office-free environment of work looks like. Um, I can show you a project, just a project to give you an idea about what the outputs are if you are doing in such a way. So this was a residence. It is like a 2,500 square feet residence, which was built in Tiruvannamalai. It's in a village. So the client is the one who I mentioned. He is Carlo. He is from Switzerland. He had a lot of knowledge and was very interactive guy who could teach you a lot with lime. So he was a person who was an expertise in limestone or lime work. So we had a lot of sessions with him, and we had ended up doing a project completely of CSEB blocks and lime plasters and Roman flooring. Roman flooring is a flooring which is made up of lime and some exposed work. So this building has the least chemical usage according to, definitely concrete is being used, but other than that, this building has the least chemical usage according to as we are designing. So this is a front elevation of a facade of the building. You can see a very beautiful cantilevered, you can say, probably cantilevered slab extended almost 5 feet plus outside. Um, you can see the front veranda, which is like, again, it's a Roman flooring, which is a lime flooring, which is not usually seen in anywhere. I mean, it is not usually visible because these practices are very labor intensive, and people are not so convenient on doing this, because the major drawback or the major difference between a conventional practice and a traditional practice is that these building materials or these building practices are not always convenient. So it is not so convenient to just lay a brick or go something like that. It requires a lot of labor, and it's a labor intensive process. So this was a Roman flooring. The color was brought with the natural color pigments. Again, with the doing in site, working in site, you get to learn about materials a lot. So you know where the material comes from. You know how to procure a material and what quality you get. So these windows and doors are from old buildings. These doors are like directly from old buildings. These windows are like resized, or the wood is reused one from old one, which we usually procure from Pondicherry or somewhere like that, from old buildings. They demolish these buildings, and these are like, probably they go for waste. So we used to get those beams or the columns or something like that. We take into our consideration and reshape it to all these required necessary things. So this is a very simple interior of the residence. You can see it's completely lime plaster and exposed work, lime flooring, which is of an yellow color, and an open kitchen, which is again a exposed concrete thing, and lots of ventilation, because light and ventilation is the basics of everything which we design. So this is how an exposed wall looks. This house has a courtyard with a major element here. We have used terracotta flooring here, that too unshined or like very rough sort of terracotta, which the client preferred a lot. You can see a door towards the center of the room. So that door was directly from an old, probably like an old house. So it was like even the house, even the door had a house number and all. So we retained that thing. We carefully made that into consideration and took those elements and kept it in the house, which sort of complement with the design. The courtyard, you can see that house with the number there. So that is how rustic the practice was. The flooring, these pillars are all from traditional houses, but you will not find all these the base of these pillars there. So probably we get one or two. So we try to find laborers who has the ability to manufacture or replicate the same thing. So we do all those things. We just do research. We draw these details. We give to some people. We give the sample thing, and we do that. That's something like that. A courtyard with this clay tile, which is a traditional tile. Even laying this tile is it's a interesting process. So it is like it stays in some sort of friction or something like that. So everything is interesting if you visit the site. So different types of windows. So how does a circle window will be? So what reinforcement need to be there? or if an opening comes in between in middle of a wall. So how do you tackle that? So all these things you can only learn when you really visit the site. A skylight reflecting the wall. I have already shown you a picture of how this wall is being built. Even though it looks very simple and it is just a wall with a plaster, but the process goes behind is what makes it a unique one. So these doors, these panes are everything of light. So these handrails are of reused steel. Um, the wash basin, if you see, these are like we procured this from Auroville. So these are like from stone. We are not going with any ceramic sort of thing. This is from a stone based one. So this is how our practice, or the way we practice, or the way we work on site differs from what the other practices are. So at this, you can see the exterior or the top view of thing. We have given a white marble here. So it is very strange that we have given a very low cost terracotta tile inside and costly marble upstairs, because it was just to reflect the sunlight. We need some white sort of material, and the client was not so happy with using tile there because it was it was not so nature friendly. So the alternative white was, even though we could have gone with lime plaster or something like that, the client chose to have marble. So yeah, this is how it evolves. Like, it is not just like one thing that you should always keep it as a standard and work on to. You can just probably evolve with what is available at site or what the client requires, and this is an entirely different process to experience. With that, I'm just winding up my uh, presentation. So yeah, so I know it is like a completely open sort of thing, because it was like a very casual, broad brief which I was about to talk to, and I just had the 1 hour time. So I was, I probably I would be like usually hurrying up to show what exactly what goes behind to practice in site, and not just stick to an office environment. And I definitely encourage all those people, at least your 1 or 2 years of part of your architectural career should be spent on site. You should be you should be at site. So when I was starting at site, I was basically like a supervisor, or I was like a layman there. I was not an architect at all, because I can't be an architect to a community who don't know who an architect is. So I can only be a layman who can just help with them. So that is how it evolved. So you get to experience all those things. It is sometimes it feels like a strange feeling. As an architect, we would probably thought it would be like a white collar job, or we just sit in an air conditioned room and work, and that was not the exact scenario what I was working on to. But later I understood that, okay, this is what I actually like into, because liking in nature or mud is not a very creative feel or something like that. It is just inbuilt within us. You always tend to like all this nature. I am pretty sure, and I'm 100% confident that all the people who are attending, or all the people who are studying, they will definitely go through this phase. Like, they will definitely love this nature materials or nature friendly techniques. But only if you turn out to be people who practice that. The reason is simple: because it is not that convenient, or it is not that it is not that easy. Even I have got some comments from my fellow people like, oh, you just work at site and it is very easy, we like work 24/7 at system. No, it is not the scenario. We also work at systems, but the major of the time you spend at site. Unless and until you are there at site, you can't improvise your design, because designing is not a single process, I would say. Because as you have experienced in our architectural field, we don't like end up with a single design and concept. We just evolve. We get the redo. We get evolved through it. So that is but we fail to do the same at the site, because we rarely visit the site. So being an architect, or being a person, not just remove the word architect and just imagine you being a person, and you have some sort of imaginative power or imaginative skill to look into things which you can even visualize things which are not even built. So that power with you can implement and improvise a lot of things at site. So you definitely need to experience every architect. It is just my perspective. Every architect who who are after graduation of ready to practice, you guys definitely need to experience what it is to be at site. That will give you a lot more knowledge, a lot more exposure towards what our field is all about. So with that, I would probably conclude my presentation, and I'm open to questions. So if any,
Yes,
uh,
we have
yeah,
a question. Thank you for the wonderful presentation. It's very new, having a canvas like a site and working on it. I also have few questions, and
yeah,
I
definitely.
think it would be nice if Divya could switch on your mic and ask the questions directly. Divya?
Hi, Sreehari. Thank you so much for that wonderful presentation. I'm Architect Divya.
Hello, ma'am. How are you, ma'am?
Doing good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing good, ma'am. I'm doing good. Yeah, ma'am. Thank you.
My primary question was, do you choose to use mud based on the site you're working on? Is it an organically derived decision? Or do you decide to use mud because this is what I want to use? And irrespective of the site, you take it from a particular place and use mud?
We practice both the ways, ma'am, but majority of the time we used to procure mud from a particular point of place, because what happens is like it is not so convenient, it is not so easy to always get the mud from site, because it is again a different process. Like we need to send the samples, we need to manufacture a CSCB blocks out of it, we need to send that for testing, and then if it is really has this property, we can use that. The building which I showed in my presentation, it is a combination of both. We have procured mud from outside. Also, we have taken a few samples from our site, and we have made that. But to answer that question, for a major extent, we used to procure red soil from outside. That is kind of a safer way to no do this conventional sort of no constructions. Because at times when we use the mud at site, it tend to have that tend to have less property of what we are expecting, and it is always like a trial and error process, which the clients usually don't prefer to. There are only very few people who are okay with having even cracks in the wall. We are doing a mud plastered wall or something like that. Definitely there's a chances of getting minor air cracks, and also it is always a question of how the client is convenient with our process. We always give them both the options. We give them that, okay, you can also do this in a better way, in a more sustainable way from taking the mud from site. According to that, we probably evolve. That is how we do with that, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Architect Shiva, ma'am.
Yeah.
Shiva, ma'am. Yeah. Okay. So I just read out the question.
Sure.
Yeah. How did you overcome the fears when you chose this experimental hands-on one, not a regular choice by architect actually?
Um, I'm still I'm still in the process of understanding what how my field will reflect in a far more future point. I always had that fear because it was not like a regular practicing, as you mentioned. I was always a fear like whether this would really give me a source of livelihood or something like that. So I always had that fear, but once I had the opportunity to step into a site or step into similar practice, I always believe that our source of practice get evolved by word of mouth. So if you really construct something at site, or if the people tend to see your work rather than just showing your portfolio, there are better chances of people approaching you for similar projects. That is how it was been going. Because I initially on my fourth year, I don't know whether it was the right time to even experiment something, but I fortunately done that. So at the time I started with a small residence, and now I'm going with a couple of residential projects, and to the list, the bigger project is from the Bhumi College, which is from Bangalore. They do this sustainable living sort of course. They are a big set of organization. So I am doing their project now. So that is how through word of mouth it has been going through. So it is a 40 acres of institutional project which I'm going. So through each and every project which I'm getting, I'm losing that fear, I would say, because it is continuously, everyone is in fear. of what they're choosing is right or wrong, because that is the mentality of a young architect like me, that I have to admit that. So but every project which gets add on to the list, I'm more confident about, okay, this is the process. And even discussions like this, because no, there will be like hundreds of people out there, and I'm here for a discussion that gives me an no, that helps me to me a confident, or gives me a confidence to have a statement that I'm doing in the right way. Probably that's how I'm overcoming my fear. Probably that would have answered your question, I guess, ma'am. Yeah.
Yes.
How
Jiyosha,
do you
can
fix the
you?
lack of
Yes,
skilled
yes. How do
workers?
you fix
Yeah.
the lack of skilled workers?
Absolutely. We basically train them. That's a single thing. Same as how architects are evolved. So if there is no skilled labor, you get two masons who have no experience dealing with mud. We put one skilled mason with them, and they like interact and they learn. That's a simple process. How we learn from our fellow people. That's as simple as that. But definitely there is a very lack of skilled laborers in the society. As to be very frank, this doesn't require much or like an extreme skill sets or something like that. It is a mindset of interest, I would say. Any person who knows to lay a brick can do CSCB. There is no difference at all. Only the thing, the dimensions or the material we use might change, but the techniques is all same. But they are not really confident, or they are not really willing to do that, because it is a labor intensive process. They have other sources where they can do this work more easily. So that is a place where the question of skilled laborers is really necessary or not. But this is how the process we tackle those things. Definitely, yes.
Yes. So, how did
Yeah.
you convey the ideas to the masons? And could you share us about cost efficiency while you work on site and how you worked on structure?
Okay, so convey the ideas to masons is a very interesting process, because yeah, if I tell something in an architectural term, or if some sort of word which is not relevant to them, it is completely lost. Even I had faced this thing, and I had a lot of issue with this, because it was not always an easy process to understand their communication language and interact with them. But to convey the ideas, it's basically I will be the while designing, I will be an architect, while construction I will be the supervisor. So I'll be standing at site and seeing how this thing is done. Okay, till for example, if you take that stonework, for almost to a 5 or 6 course of line, I was there continuously, and I noticed those labors. How do they react with the thing? I used to take and give them like 5 stones. If they're really capable of taking the 6th stone with their own sense, okay, if this color suits here, then that's it. I had already conveyed my idea. That's how I used to work. So it's basically we are at site probably every day. I used to, even because of lockdown, it's like completely a different scenario, but every day we used to be at site. We used to like really experiment like what is happening there. And the other question was cost efficiency, and would you sit on work on site, and how work on structures. Cost efficiency, to be very frank, it is like very contradicting to what we actually learn from academics. It is definitely much more higher than the conventional method. Usually even I had an impression of like, okay, if you go with mud, it is definitely lesser. It is not the scenario in a real life scale, because but it is definitely possible, but it is not the actual practicing scale. For example, if you are doing a normal construction at a rate of 1,800 per square feet, you'll be doing this in 2,200 or 2,400. It is a huge level of cost. The reason is because definitely the skilled laborers is a thing, or the laborers required more time to do the work, because it is much more labor intensive process, because we are designing something which are not so usually practiced. So these things will definitely raise the cost a bit, and the procuring materials, because for example, if you see chemicals are easily available everywhere. So if you are looking for some chemical related thing, if you're looking for a paint, it is readily available within a one maybe like 5 kilometers radius. But if you're looking for an organic thing, which is not at all available at a place, we used to procure lime from Bangalore. We have to procure even as we had procured lime from Delhi. So these things definitely adds up the cost. So altogether, it is definitely a higher sort of thing, but definitely it is possible to create something with of lower cost. But the thing is, you have to compromise on a lot of things, the finishes or the details, or more rustic finish. if you're going with something like that, definitely the cost will get reduced. And structural, yes, we can't take a really risk on that, so we deal with a structural engineer for that. These people understand our materials, so they knows what exactly we are doing at site. So accordingly, we work with few structural engineers, and with like if you like do or 3-4 buildings on a stretch, you definitely know what exactly goes there. But still, we get a supervision from a structural engineer, and that's how the structures is built. Hope I had answered your question.
Yes, I have one question. So, you
Yes.
said you work on the site for drawing the plan, and we also saw the picture of this marking
Yeah.
and all this.
Yeah.
So, do you actually do any drawings, like at least a reverse drawing once you constructed? Because I can understand on site there will be a lot of challenges, and you have to deal with a lot more changes on site. And even we
Definitely.
plan and then we execute, also the same thing that happens.
Mhm.
How do you actually come up with drawings, a sketch, or what is the process?
The process is the same as general thing. I actually design my system or software or something like that. So that is the initial sort of design I would go. Probably I start with sketching, or I just initially I used to visit the site to understand what the site has to give. So there will be places I had done residence where it is like completely 3 sides covered with buildings. So you just have an access from one side and there's no sort of ventilation, everything. So from that I evolved my design. So I would say I would get a clear idea of what my site has to offer, where I get what are the things I can get from the site. Accordingly, I will design, I will sketch, I'll have some conceptuals, I'll discuss with the clients or someone like that. Later, we implement that site. So definitely, while implementing, there are a lot of changes happening and all. But the one thing I'll keep in mind is that I will not like completely fix to my design. Like maybe the structure would be the shell would be the same, but I will not be like a pre-planned person who does every detail well in hand. I will get an understanding. Okay. For example, if you take a toilet, which is a very important thing for any design, or a kitchen. So I'll get an understanding of, okay, this is how it is going to be, but I'll not be into a complete detailed process initially, so that while later on changing stage, I shouldn't have my mindset like completely fixed to something. So I go and visit site while the walls are raised. I just go and see, okay, what exactly need to happen. Okay, this window I have placed as per my drawing, but doesn't complement to the site conditions. So I have to change my sink on some other place or some other location. That is how it evolves in site. Hope I had answered your question. Not like,
Yes,
yeah.
yes. And yeah, we have one more question from Shita ma'am. Can you tell the students the approach or choice of studying, or how to start thinking about such practice?
Yeah, ma'am. So basically, as I said before, it is within everyone. Like everyone likes rain and everyone likes mud. So it actually it is like an inherited thing within us. We always know how to complement nature. Um, but the approach is something like you should basically experience that. So just for example, if a person don't know how to do swimming, he will be always in a fear, like, okay, there's something there and I should not go. But once he started experiencing the feel, or the field or something, the feel of water, he will definitely enjoy it, and he'll try to incorporate that. So it is always a necessary for the students to get exposed to all these things. Usually I don't know how much or how extent it has been happening. We are not probably providing them a platform. I mean, not like providing them a platform, but it should be little more of an material oriented studies, which would help them to get an interest towards all these things. Because throughout my my UG course, I would have like rarely visited site. So I would have rarely touched this mud. I would have rarely done a masonry. So only on these workshops I used to do that. So that is not the case. We should probably encourage the students to get. It is not always necessary to get into some huge firms, or like big shot firms or something like that. It is what is always necessary, or what is always best, is to stick to somewhere. You should have that constant thing. So you can encourage your students to approach a nearby construction site, and do some analysis, or do some work, or do some video documentation or something like that. This will definitely encourage them to get exposed to all these hands-on trainings. So probably that would help them to get an idea or interest towards these practices. Yeah, probably I would have answered your question, ma'am. And Mani ma'am and Shiba ma'am, thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Do you have more questions?
I think all these questions were asked by faculties, I guess.
No, there are few
There are
students.
few. Okay.
Yes.
I would also like to know, because this section was mainly conducted for you students, and you don't need to be alienated because I'm just a recent architect to say. So you can just shoot out your questions. If it is really, if it is really come to my knowledge, I can answer that. And I also know like there are some conservation students there, I guess. Is that so, ma'am?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, so I
Students.
luckily I was also into conservation for a period of some time. So you can even have, it is not like restricted towards this sustainable or natural materials. You can also, if you have any question, you can ask that. No, everyone's silent.
So we have one more question from the students. How did you overcome from structural pressure at first on-site work?
On-site work. It was actually a very new thing for me. This cost structures and everything was completely new for me. I used to like, maybe can say my first project. I used to design something, and then I was like, okay, we need to get a structural engineer. Then only this building will stand. So it was like a big hit for me. And even though I know that okay, structures is there, I didn't know like how the process was. So to just recall, I can say one small thing. Like I had done a cantilever of like around 2.6 meters, I guess, or around like 6 feet or something like that, 6 to 7 feet or something like that. It was very because I was always into like all these projections and everything, this cantilever thing. I designed that, and later when dealing with structures, only I get to know that okay, if I'm not giving a column there, this is definitely going to cost a lot. And that I came to know only when I was doing my roof slab. So that was a big hit for me. Okay, that made me realize okay, it is always the structures has to work in hand. So whatever you design, the job of a structural engineer is to do something and accommodate that in land. But it is always better that you work with them. It is not like you give this and get those structures from them. You should know how a structural engineer thinks, or you should know what structural engineering or structures are. So basically, you develop a sort of knowledge on structures also. So you will know, okay, if I give so and so, this has to be here. So I'll design accordingly, or I have to give a retaining wall, I have to give some load bearing structure or something like that. So it was also initially it was like a lot of pressure, but now I'm very used to it. So I know how it works at site. So probably with that, I am more like comfortable with structures now. Yes.
Any more questions? Yes. Yeah. I think probably will end the session
Sure,
now.
sure.
Yes. Thank you so much for your time and sharing your wonderful journey with us. It's very new thing because working on site and introducing the first-hand experience to the students. It's a very wonderful thing. I hope it is really inspiring to a lot of us, and we would encourage the students to work on the site. And thank you so much for joining today. And it's really a very good presentation on behalf of Mohammed Sipak, AJ Academy of Architecture. We thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for the opportunity, ma'am. I don't know how far I have contributed to the topic or I have justice to the topic, but still, I hope like you would have got an idea about how the practice happens here. Thank you for the opportunity, ma'am. And you guys are doing great, and it is very useful for students like during this pandemic situations. Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you for all the faculties joining. Thank you for all the students who have spent like almost 1 hour time knowing all these things. So thank you so much. Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you,
It's a pleasure.
Sreehari,
Yeah.
for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank
Yeah.
you so much. Thank you, everyone.